stage here. Welcome. So as I was saying, Dr. James Oldroyd, Associate Professor of Strategy at BYU's Marriott School of Management, and the Ford Motor Richard Cook Research Fellow. James is being joined by Dave Elkington, founder of Inside Sales and Utah Silicon Slopes, who will introduce us a little further here. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hearing what you have to present.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks for the intro, Pete. And we're excited to share some new research. So Jim and I, probably 10 years back, I believe, did a lot of research around trying to understand the value of marketing MQLs as they begin to cool off, or based on how hot they are. We called it the lead response management study. It was published in HBR, in Sloan. It was on really New York Times and Wall Street Journal. When Pete and I were speaking about this event, and we thought it'd be really interesting to do some research around understanding impact and basically where we're at in the industry in terms of using AI in our go-to-market activities. And so that's what Jim, Professor Oldroyd, today is presenting, is the development and kind of the adoption of AI in different go-to-market activities. And so this is a very exhaustive study. You guys are the first to hear the results of this study. So this is like hot off the press. I believe, your team, Jim, were prepping information late last night and early this morning. We have well over 500 people engaged in the study. It's an ongoing study. And so I think we're going to continue to learn more, but we have enough data that you feel as though we should be able to have really good results, and we should be able to kind of share some really interesting insights. So give us a little bit of background on like what you were trying to solve as you were putting this study together. Sure. And then let's get into it.
So this is I think one of the first studies to specifically look at the sales space and AI. There's been lots of studies done looking at AI in general. We know there's AI is obviously the hottest topic in business right now, and so I think this is one of the first to look specifically at what are people doing, in this study we were interested in not only what people are actually doing, but what they intend to do. So what would be the ideal, and so we're looking at across the whole revenue space, how is AI being used, and how is that driving success or results there.
And the thing I think everyone who's listening now, I think the thing that you're going to find the most value out of is as we did the study, we compared against people at different levels of growth rate. So we looked at all the way from a negative 30% growth rate all the way to a positive plus 30% growth rate. And we looked at it in 5% increments. And then we ran lots of regression and analysis to say what behaviors, what use of AI is associated with higher growing companies versus lower growing companies. So what you're going to get out of the study today, and I think it's going to be super fascinating, is you're going to be able to say, first, where is the market really at? Because there's so much hype. Mm-hmm. There's so much baloney of, there's all these, Instagram anecdotes where someone's like, I am making $50,000 a month doing nothing, having AI work for me. And I think what we're going to find today is it's not real. This is all hype. We're in the infancy stage of AI as it's being used in the B2B go-to-market funnel. I mean, that's really what we found out of the day.
And as it always is, like the study shows that this is harder than, this is hard work. Like anything of value, it's hard work for firms.
So kind of key findings, and let's just dig right into it. But key findings are, we're in like the first stage of the first inning in the adoption and use and kind of value creation of AI in the B2B space, in kind of go-to-market activities. And that in general, so I guess the good news to that is there is lots of opportunity. If you want to be an innovator, if you're a consultant, if you're a CMO, if you're a sales rep, there's an opportunity for you to basically get ahead of everybody by applying some of the learnings that you're going to hear today, and really trying to be on the leading edge of how to use this stuff. So let's go right now. Pete, if you can present our slides. I'm not quite sure how to do that here. There we go. Okay, so again, largest study of its kind. I think it's the first dedicated analysis of how AI is being used in go-to-market. So I'll do some intro, and then Jim, I'd love to get your insights. So the first thing is just AI adoption by where it is in the adoption in kind of the evolution or the development of AI. And so there's really 4 buckets. People are using, sorry, one second. People are using AI for 4 key things, basically, as they're getting further and more sophisticated in the use. So, and this is where we found 81% of respondents believe that their organization are basically in this first 1 or 2 stages. And let's be clear what it is. Number 1, people are using AI to summarize information. So they're taking reports and saying, you know, ChatGPT, summarize this for me so I don't have to read 80 pages. I can read 2 paragraphs. They're also using it to then write, you know, basic content. So they're saying, write an email for me, but it's all ideation, summarization, and then basic interpretation. And that's the purple column that you're looking at. So it's either summarization, basic interpretation, and then the last 2 columns that pretty much nobody is really doing, very few people are really automating their funnel. So, you know, Professor Oldroyd, like, explain to us, you know, where you see the market is at and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, so I mean, I think these are 4 clear stages that of evolution that we'll see eventually in the sales, you know, and as we look at automation in marketing and sales, we're clearly in the beginning here. I mean, it's, you know, so from the survey, we realized that, in fact, we'll show you data here in a minute, that we're just beginning. So like, we're really at stage 1. There's a few, you know, a few firms that have moved on to stage 2, but so I know there's a lot of companies, a lot of executives I've talked to who are out there thinking, I feel like we're behind. I feel like we're behind. And I think that one of the results of the survey is you're probably not behind. You're also having the same anxiety that everyone else is having in trying to figure out what is AI going to mean for the, you know, my organization specifically, but also what does it mean, you know, in general. And the results are clear, showing that we're just at the beginning here. We're at the beginning of
well, and you referenced something I really like. I think there's so much FOMO in the market right now. In fact, it's gonna vet out as we show more of the slides. But there's so much fear that, and in fact, we explicitly ask some of these questions. But there's so much fear that one of your competitors is doing something that you're not. That there's a little bit of franticness and urgency that probably doesn't need to be actually felt. So, okay, I'm gonna hit the next slide because we have quite a bit of data and I want to move through it. So the context here is the adoption by size is companies that are larger are actually adopting slower, and companies that are smaller are adopting faster. So, you know, 100 million to 500 million plus in revenue seem to have a much lower adoption rate. Give me your sense on that, Professor Oldroyd.
Yeah, so I mean, this is perhaps unsurprising. Technologies, I mean, Clayton Christensen's work on disruption shows that smaller firms are more agile, more likely to adopt new technologies. Larger firms are slower to adopt new technologies. You know, to me, this is perhaps unsurprising. You know, if I have a massive organization where we have had, you know, processes in place for a decade, and then new technology comes out like AI, we're probably going to be a little slower to use this. So it's perhaps unsurprising.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think people should experience as you're reading this or hearing this, is if you're a larger company, you probably have a little more time to get your ducks in a row.
Well, and I would say, like, one of the takeaways from this is, if I'm a large organization, rather than trying to roll out AI across the whole thing, I might want to carve off a specific instance or segment within my organization where we can experiment with AI and learn, and then roll that out. So rather than thinking of this as a monolithic adoption of AI, I think one of the takeaways is, if I'm a large organization, figure out space where you can innovate with AI, experiment with AI, and then Yeah, and then scale that.
Adoption. That's right. And again, I would say if you're a smaller company, I would look at technologies and tools that you can iterate very quickly. Large companies naturally have a slower buying cycle, and so it's very difficult to get these kind of technologies through InfoSec and through data security and things like that. So I would say if you're a smaller company, take advantage of your ability to be nimble and try things and try them quickly. And if they work, obviously expand them. If they don't, drop them fast. So use your ability to buy and evaluate quicker than larger companies to your advantage. Okay, the next one is the leadership's perception of the cost of AI. This one was really interesting.
Surprising.
Yeah, it's really surprising. ROI and I would say increased revenue was not the primary driver for adoption. And this is across different company sizes. This was across different title levels, but mostly senior leadership really care about really data quality. I guess the biggest barrier is the quality of the data, and the security of the data is by far the biggest concern. However, more junior management, they're more concerned about cost. So senior people, I guess, as I think about it, it kind of is intuitive. Senior leadership are worried about the liability of AI. Junior leadership is more concerned about the cost of AI. And almost nobody is really focused on like, hey, what are the outcome or the results of AI?
Yeah, and so to me, what that signals is that there's a lot of apprehension and fear, and not a lot of everyone's afraid they're going to miss something, but they don't know what the something is, and so they're chasing this fear, like you said, the fear of missing out without understanding, without being strategic in this. So I'm a strategy professor. This to me is saying that AI and its instances are missing strategy, because it's not about how can I drive revenue. It's not about even what does this cost for me as a firm. This is about I'm late to a party and I feel like I'm missing out, and it's going to have massive ramifications for me. But you're not even sure what those ramifications might be yet. So again, this indicates we're still early in if we're looking at how AI is going to impact organizations, particularly, with their go-to-market, we're still very early, because people aren't saying, oh, I know I'm going to miss, a massive increase in revenue, or my ROI is going to go through we're just not even worried about that yet.
It's all risk mitigation is where we're kind of at within kind of this B2B space. All right, let's look at the top challenges. So 57, and I mentioned this a slide or two ago, 57% of execs think, now there's a type error here, but data quality is the top challenge. The reason they're not deploying AI, when they're not deploying AI, is because their data is not good. And I'll give you an interesting example. There's a company I spoke with that I advise with, and their biggest issue is, one, getting access to their data. There's so many silos of data that are in legacy technologies, that getting access to that and then kind of piping that into the different systems that allow generative AI to create value and content and strategy. That I mean, in particular, I mean, the company I was talking to, people will appreciate this who are a little bit older on this presentation today. It's an AS400 system. There's a ton of data in these old legacy systems like AS400, old Siebel systems, that they can't actually get access to, or the quality of it is just not very good. And so those silos of data are actually currently the biggest challenge to getting AI deployed.
Yeah, and it's the analogy would be we're using a quarter of our brain instead of the full. So if we don't have the AI is trained on data, so the better the data and the volume of data and the data integrity, the better AI is going to work. And so these are significant issues. To me, also, this again highlights these are how do I execute problems, not what does this cost? Do we have the skill to do it? So to me, it's like we're at the starting line and we're like, I can't even start yet.
Yeah.
The costs and the lack of skill and things that I think will become significant challenges down the road aren't even a problem yet because we're still tying our shoes before the race.
That totally makes sense. All right, I'm going to keep pushing us along. The decision factors that are influencing AI investment. So again, improved data privacy is the thing that will really drive more adoption. We talked about this a minute ago, but what we're also seeing in some of the people we spoke to in the survey is, and Professor Oldroyd, I know you do lots of consulting with companies around this, but companies don't want to intermingle their data with broad data. So as they deploy technologies, different AI technologies, what they want to be able to do is basically have the models trained off of their own data sets and then optimize against their own data sets. Go ahead, you have a thought.
I think there's wisdom in this, right? I mean, if you look at it, one of the most valuable resources as we shift to an AI era will be, what data do I have to train? What's the training data for the AI model? And so I think companies that are going to win are those that have better AI. And I mean, this isn't something new. Netflix beat Blockbuster and then beat HBO because they had better data. So I think that data Herbert Simon said in the 1950s, we've become an age where information is ubiquitous. Now it's, can I get the right attention on things? And I think he's right. We have limited, if I can gather attention, understand attention or data, I'm going to win. It's whoever has the best data, the best, models are going to be very similar across organizations. It's going to be really trained on, that's going to be who wins.
So the best practice, if you're listening today, is go find out where your silos of data within your organization and think first party data. So what I mean by that is, don't worry about the generic data that's out on the web, social media data, GPT data. Think about data in your CRM. Think about data in, behavioral data on your website as your prospects and your customers are engaging on your brands. Think about data if you have a technology that you guys sell. Think about the data that you're storing within your technology. Any way that
So can I just, that's so important, because I think that everyone is throwing away so much good data. They're just literally, I was working with an organization recently where they didn't even have, they had access to, but weren't collecting a key piece of data. So it was a recruiting company, and they weren't getting data on where the people actually hired, like the key piece of data. They could easily get that data. They just weren't thinking ahead. So to me, as Dave just mentioned, every click, everything going on, you should be assuming that that's going to be important. And the truth is it will. If we look at who's doing this well, it's sports. Every acceleration of a football player, every time they move, literally we know minute behavioral data on athletes, and because of that we're very good at building teams. Right now we're at a very kind of, I would say, high level. Instead of digging, winning in the future is going to be having better data.
There's a guy named Nate Silver who I had hired to speak at one of my events, who does lots of prediction around basically sports, stock market, airlines. And I asked him, I'm like, why, those don't make sense. Why do you do analysis around those? And he said, the data is so clean. Mm-hmm. And so as you think about putting your salespeople on the road, or all of your email campaigns and marketing, really focus on not just collecting it in a way that you can get access to it, but really think about the outcome of those results. Because the way AI can optimize this is, it'll say, this is the behavior and this is the outcome. Let's find correlation between behavior that drives the kind of outcome we want. So make sure you're capturing your data in a way that meaningfully allows you to run these models.
And you can get access. I mean, so just to going back, HBO used to use Nielsen's or whatever to find out what people were watching, Netflix had direct access to what people, when did they stop? When did they rewind? When did they fast forward? When did they, abandon a movie? And with that data, they thought they could build better content than other, having never built content. They're like, we know which content's actually going to do better than even HBO.
Right.
And again, it's
more
data.
granular real-time data.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's jump into industry. So basically, and use this as benchmarking. So again, as you're sitting here listening, this should tell you where you stand. 65% of the following industries say they regularly or always use AI in their go-to-market in some place. So it's IT, which makes sense. So think technology, software, companies like that, business services, financial services, and insurance industries. Those industries are high adopters of AI. The laggards right now are healthcare, education, and manufacturing. And I mean, it makes sense to me. Those are intuitive. Those are generally early adopters of new tech and laggards of new tech.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, frankly, like, as much as there's hype around this, so the reality is AI is going to dramatically reduce costs and dramatically improve differentiation of firms. And so it's going to happen. Like, yeah. you can pretend like it's not going to happen, but every industry is going to be significantly impacted by AI.
But if you're looking at this chart, I mean, look at the healthcare line right here, where it's like, again, in healthcare, 65% of people in healthcare they say they never use AI. And then the remainers say they rarely use AI. So these are industries that I think if you're in, maybe just catch your breath a little bit. It's okay if you're not doing it right now, because again, there's so much FOMO. If you're not doing it, you're probably okay.
Or just lead out.
Or lead. That's right.
Like start the experimentation. I think everyone thinks that I have to have the solution built before I start, and I think with AI, it's going to be a lot of experimentation and learning along the way.
And I want to go back. Think when we say where AI usage is happening, it's two things. I'll call it three. They're using it to ideate. They use AI to get ideas, and then they go do something on their own, or they use it to summarize information, and then they make decisions based off of it, or they try and get a little bit of interpretation or meaning out of it. So they look for some correlation out of it. What you're going to see here, very few people are actually automating, kind of blind automation and trusting AI. So I'm going to push forward. Excuse me. This content gets, I think, really interesting. What we're finding here is we looked into the kind of the kind of activities, the kind of content people are using AI to generate. And so we looked at marketing content and we looked at sales enablement content, kind of the two primary content drivers for go-to-market. And this is what we found, Professor Oldroyd, like kind of what was the summary?
So I mean, to me, so if you're looking at this chart, so we're looking at blogs, videos, all the way across to social media posts, and you can just follow that green line. It's amazing that it stays quite high until you get to emails and social media. So I think people are starting to figure it out. I can have AI draft an email, trust that email is going to be good enough, and send it out. Podcasts, I'm not going to have it do a podcast for me. I'm not going to, so I mean, we just see here there's a but the other thing I'll emphasize is that the orange always, look how thin that is, almost all the way across. I know that there's people out there, I've missed the AI, I've missed it. And the reality is no, you haven't.
No one is doing it.
We're just at the beginning of this.
That's right. And I think the general finding from this is when credibility really matters. So think testimonials, reviews, white papers, or when I'm presenting in person, like strangely enough, we used almost no AI. I don't know that we used any AI to summarize or to generate the results of this study. Because this is like credibility, and you wanted to make sure like it's highly.
Yeah, like I wouldn't feel comfortable. Like AI, you don't know if it's going to be 100% accurate, and we wanted 100% accuracy in this.
So it's, again, I think if you're listening to this, start thinking about using it for these three areas: for email generation or even ideation. Have it do a draft of your email. That was one thing we saw a lot of feedback in the respondents. For social media and for generating concepts around infographics.
Well, and I would just push a little bit and say, try it for everything. Try it for case studies. But be much more vigilant on those, I think, because the implications of incorrect are higher.
And I was just reminded by the producers here. They said, if you have questions, go ahead and post them in the live chat, and then they will be then posted to us. So as we're presenting any of this data, if you have any questions, please post the questions, and then they'll provide feedback. All right, so let's push forward.
That's great.
So this was interesting. This was something you'd had the researchers do, Professor Oldroyd. So we looked at what people are currently doing, and then what they want to do.
Yeah, the ideal state, right? So here's what our current behavior is, and we assumed that wouldn't be as good as what the ideal. To me, what was shocking is that even the desired is still we're never going to use it there. So to me, what that says is that there's a lot of people missing the vision of AI. They literally just don't get it. The fact that it's not like I'm always going to use AI. I'm gonna have a sufficient AI tool to help me do all of my emails. It's shocking to me that. But again, I think that's indicative that we're really early in this, and people haven't seen it. So those who have seen it are probably like, this is going to change the world. Everyone else is kind of wondering, is it going to change the world? The answer is it's going to change the world. I was shocked that the ideal state was like a lot of.
It was. I mean, just to put a fine point on it, the orange line. I'm going to go up a slide, and just compare those orange lines. This is people who currently are always using AI for these activities, and this is people who think, boy, in a perfect world, this is where I would always be using AI, and it's nearly the same. So basically, it's 40% of companies or respondents here are now 20 to 40% are saying I'm going to sometimes or I'm going to often or always use it. That should be, I thought, just naively, before this study, I thought that would be 90% always or often. So just I'm going to compare. I mean, there's a little difference.
There's not as much movement as I thought. That's for sure.
Okay, so moving forward, now the same analysis in sales enablement. So this is content used to support your sales. Kind of think marketing, mid top funnel, sales, mid lower funnel.
And basically what we're seeing here is that if it's a cold call email script, that's when we're seeing people doing more of it. Sales scripts, so those kind of things. But again, the thing that I want you to focus on is that always line, and always and often line. You can see that. I mean, this is just, we're very
thin. Razor thin, right? So again, the point is, no one is really using it on a regular basis. So again, everybody take a huge sigh of relief. You're not behind anybody else. This, again, there's enough data. There's lots of statistical significance in the results of this data. So people are using it.
So and then to put the fear back into you, so I can give you a few antidotes of organizations that have figured it out, and what they're doing it's quite astounding, actually. So what Dave's saying is true. Take a deep breath, realize you're probably okay, and then dig in and get to work, because those that have figured it out are they're gonna win. Frankly, they're just gonna win.
And if you're feeling anxious, the areas that everybody else are. Oh, my desk moved on me. The area that people are using this for are cold calling, email scripts, sales scripts, and competitor analysis. That's where it is being used. Where people are not using it are win-loss stories, battle cards, sales playbooks. And as a general rule, well, there's some interesting. So the first half of this study is really observational data. We're going to get into the correlation and the regression.
Yeah.
And there's some contradiction to what people are doing versus what is working. So let's but just remember, this is what people are at least claiming that they're doing right now. So now this is the gap between these two. This is what the ideal scenario they would use for sales enablement content. I'm going to just flip again between these so people can see the change. Similarly, that orange line, it doesn't really change. So this reinforces your point. Share kind of your thought on this.
Yeah. So again, I think it just shows that even, with sales enablement behaviors, that we still, there's still not a lot of vision there. Like people are like, yeah, often or always I might use it. But so this was, again, before starting the study, I would have thought this would have been much higher. And, Pete just put a question in which says many employees are using AI to summarize and for ideas, as you said, but a lot of it is one-off usage. What ideas do you have on implementing AI in a scalable and intelligent way? And to me, that's exactly what this data is showing, is nobody knows how to do it often or always. They're like, yeah, if I think about it, I'll rarely or sometimes or never, do this. That is the difference. It's always the difference. Whoever can figure out how to institutionalize, as we say in academic terms, how we can institutionalize a process. A lot of people understood just-in-time was a great thing to do. Toyota figured out how to institutionalize it. That's why they won. And so, what ideas do I have for implementing AI in a scalable, intelligent way? Like, if I took nothing else away from this, or from your summit today, if you can figure that out, you win. Like that is the primary challenge. How do I do this in a scalable, intelligent way where it's now I'm always or often doing it? Right now, the default is I don't do it and I might try it. What if the default was it happens and then I go evaluate it? I think that's how you do it.
That's a great next step.
You make it the default is I use AI, and then I can always back away from it. So,
and I want to pile on here. So one of the lessons I would take from this though is going to that slide where in those 4 stages of AI adoption, ideation and summarization, and then really kind of basically meaning extrapolation. You should be doing that constantly. In fact, I think Tamara just asked, what about prospect research? Or would it follow in one of these categories? So it actually was not one of the questions we asked. It's an interesting point, which I think we will add to the next survey. We're going to do this on a quarterly basis. Yep, it's a really good point. But I guess to your point, using it for research and summarization should be the default for everybody listening to this. So whether you're using a premium GPT license or something else, I would, anytime you've got significant content to read or information about a prospect, you should be using, putting all of that into some sort of large language model and say, summarize this and give me kind of the 3 key bullet points. Using it before phone calls like cold calling or things like that. So the point of that is you're not trying to completely automate the process. You are summarizing, you're educating your sellers, your marketers, and allowing them to be way more informed at a hugely abbreviated time frame. So Tamara, it's a really good question. I'm going to push us.
We'll get it.
Yep. Next slide. Usage in the funnel progression. So this was a really interesting question. At what stage, top of funnel, mid funnel, or bottom of funnel?
So again, just to highlight here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to cut the data multiple ways to see if maybe people aren't thinking about it as activities in the sales enablement process, but they're thinking about it as, am I top of funnel or bottom of funnel or mid funnel? And the data is the same, the answer is the same. So in other words, they're still not doing it.
Basically, 65% of people say they want to start using it somewhere in the funnel. So again, it's another slice of the same content.
Yeah, and again, when we ask, okay, so here's the state and the desired state, you can see we get up to, 30-40% of people are like, yeah, I will often or sometimes use it. But so very consistent results across whether we're looking at marketing, sales, or we slice it a different way, looking across the funnel. It's just telling us the same story.
That's right.
Which is, we kind of think we should do it, but we don't. There's no vision.
We're not sure. Where do we start? And here's the same. This is another slice of the same thing. We're saying in that funnel progression, where do they want to use it? Now, this is interesting because there is a much higher desire to begin to use it in the funnel. Whereas when we ask that question in terms of specific either sales and marketing content, I think people basically are like, we're good. I don't really know where to go with it. There is a clear difference here where people are saying, we definitely want to use it more in our funnel. But again, integration, data quality, just how to do it, skill, there's a big gap in that right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna. So this now we're moving. Oh, we're not quite there. This one, what we looked at in these three areas, and this is just like for you to say, okay, what are some things I can do? This is the desired versus current, meaning what's the gap? What are the biggest gaps between what people currently are doing and people are at least claiming or stating that they would like to do?
And can I emphasize what this is really saying is, so if you think about, here's where I am, here's the ideal. The ideal means that we actually have a vision on what it could be. And so these are things that people understand but aren't quite yet there. Though all the stuff on the bottom is saying, wow, we don't even know. We don't even have a vision yet of what could possibly look like. And that's just part of it, because so as industries matures, as AI gets into this, we'll find more narratives on how you should be using it, and then we as users will understand it better, and where we're at to the ideal will actually increase, not decrease, because we'll be like, oh, I see the vision of where I could be.
Like if you're a consultant, if you're building a product, these are the areas you should be thinking about, because this is where the gap is. This is where people are saying it's not ready yet, but this is definitely what we'd like. So
That's right.
Marketing, you see how-to guides, paid ad content, newsletters, infographics. That's an area where people think the market is going. Let's hit the next one. Sales content, very similar. Sales playbooks, competitor analysis, sales presentations, and solution briefs. So this is, again, what we're not doing for AI, but people believe we want to do. I mean, it's really your same principle here.
Yeah, I mean, and these are things that people are like, wow, I know I'm not quite there yet, versus so these might be easier things to sell. Here's your gap, let's fix it.
And again, the bottom of this represents, these are the areas where like, okay, we're using it and we don't really know where to go next, or we're not using it and we don't know where to go with this stuff. So there's a lot. One thing I heard you as you were prepping and analyzing the research, one thing you shared is, boy, people are not sure. There's a lot of confusion in the market. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of fear, but there's not a lot of concrete vision.
It reminds me of so I show how old I am, but in 1999, 2001 was the .com craze. And it was like, if you don't figure out this internet thing, you're gonna be gone. And the same rhetoric is going on now. And the reality is they were right. Like if you didn't figure out the online thing, you were gone.
Well, let me pile on a story. So I was in 1999. I was sitting in the back of I was an investment banker analyst. So I was like at the very bottom of that stack, which means I got coffee and picked up people's laundries and made pitch books. But I was sitting in the back of a Jeff Bezos presentation that our bank was involved in, and he was sharing something. This is the CEO of Amazon. They were a bookstore at the time, but he was sharing kind of his vision of the future, how he's going to be much, much more than a bookstore. He's going to be, he's going to help kind of raise the level of internet. And again, I was naive sitting in the back of the room thinking this guy's a ding dong.
Turns out he was right. You were
he has the last laugh on this. But your point is, the next generation of people who change the world are going to figure out and build a vision for the future. And that's really what's needed right now in AI.
Yep.
Okay. last slide on this comparison is that funnel where people are automating using AI in the funnel, the areas they want most help. Interestingly, the very, very top and the very, very bottom. So meaning interest generation. So this is like kind of demand gen, creating clicks, creating awareness and interest. And then the very bottom in retention, renewal, kind of customer satisfaction stuff. So those are the areas where it's probably the least adopted and people believe it's going to go. I mean, again, to me, it was fascinating. That was the very top and the very bottom. Now we're in the regression stage. So yeah. This becomes really interesting. So Professor, walk us through.
Yeah, what I was trying to do here is take sales growth of firms and try to predict what's driving sales growth of firms using these AI questions. So, so basically, like these data we're going to present here are now things that are. So I actually include both statistically significant and non-statistically significant. I'll show you which are statistically significant and which aren't, but what I also want you to pay attention to is the magnitude of these. So infographics, social media posts have a statistically significant effect on sales growth of firms. And again, I'm controlling for size of the firm. I'm controlling for the revenue of the firm. I'm controlling for what they say is their AI use case. So how good are they at using AI? So I'm trying to pull out as many things as I can and just isolate it on, okay, we have growth of the firm and we have AI use, and I'm clustering errors at the industry level here, so that shouldn't be a factor. Anyway, so what we see is that infographics and social media posts are basically giving you a 2.8% increase in growth and a 2% increase in growth. Like if you're doing, if you are doing better at AI in those.
So this, I got to make sure everybody understands what you're sharing. Companies that are using these tools are growing that percent faster than companies that are not using this. So
and just to even put a finer point on it, if I move from sometimes to, or I move from frequently to always, that's what we're looking at. So like theoretically, if I move from never using to like using it all the time, that would be like a 10% increase in my growth of the firm. Now, that's a lot, and it's probably true.
And so again, the first half is informational of this study. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I can benchmark. I'm in this industry. I'm this title level. These are the kind of behaviors where, or I'm in sales, or I'm in marketing, or I'm in customer, renewal or success. This stuff is actually the real takeaway. So again, as an action item, if you're not using AI for these kinds of things, then I think if you're going to experiment, fiddle around with these kind of things.
That's exactly the takeaway is these seem to have a large, and again, so what you're looking for here is larger coefficients. So the number's bigger. And so we look at things as economically significant. In other words, they have an impact on the outcome that we're looking for, which in this case is growth, be that positive or negative. And then we look at, is it statistically significant? And statistical significance has to do with what's the sample size, how tight is the confidence interval, the people answering around it, how much variance there is. And so these are things that you should focus on, as Dave mentioned.
Now, we did have a question I want to hit. The question was, with all these AI tools out there, how do you think we can adopt AI tech without overcomplicating our tech stack and mitigating risk on those tools that are relatively new? Okay, this is just an opinion from we'll call it an informed opinion, but I think I would be careful on tools that are over automating your tech stack using AI. So if it's something that's saying, hey, we're going to automatically write this email and send it on your behalf, that feels too early. Now, again, testing something in a silo where it doesn't affect your overall stack, that's not a bad idea. So if you have the energy and the resources to test something that does do that, like I'm not saying you shouldn't, but in terms of where the market is at, what the market is saying is working and is not working.
So
look at things that are more in the ideation and summarization stage versus full automation.
So as a scientist, as an academic, to me, the answer to that question is very easy. It's called testing. And it's so right now we assume that humans are correct. And I think they're actually pretty bad at this. So a lot of the research I've done shows just how bad sales reps are in responding to leads, and just how, so we're not good at this. For me, what I would love to see is you run an experiment where let's take a fully automated and run it against my best sales reps and see the difference. Let's feed them equivalent leads and see what happens. Let's feed them equivalent prospects and see what happens.
Run some split tests.
Yeah.
Valdez, so let me interrupt. Valdez 8888 commented that it sounds there was a again, we misspoke. Valdez was right. This isn't people who are using infographics and social media posts, but this is correlated to people who desire, who are saying, this is what I want to do. Again, it's a distinction. It's an important point.
Yeah, but to me, that's saying so I get it. I understand what the vision is for infographics and social media posts. At least I know what AI should be doing here.
And there was another comment a little earlier I want to bring back. Stephanie brought up the point that AI adoption ethical adoption is not a huge top of mind topic right now. It is actually not something we included in the survey. I think we will, and it is an important one.
I also think that part of that is we're just trying to figure it out, and we don't even know what is it yet, and what would ethical be. So in some ways, I think we're just.
It's a little early to define, and I think we all have this feeling like it's easy to misrepresent. Is this a person or is this not a person? I think there is a whole class of kind of the definition of ethics in AI that I know they're teaching it in schools, but I think every school teaches it differently. There's not great standards out there, but it's a good point, Stephanie. I appreciate you.
Should be considering it.
Yeah, we should be thinking about that. So we'll include that in the next study.
So we have lots of data here. I think the net of this regression research we did is that there are definitely parts of the marketing and sales efforts that you engage in where you probably want to engage earlier than later and might have a bigger impact. And so as you look through this data, these are the elements you should probably begin to focus on, and then maybe hit some of the other ones later on as you figure it out what those look like. So
I'm going to just hit some highlights because we're running low on time. So people who are doing cold call emails and email scripts and sales presentations have a positive correlation to growth. This is actual use. And then there's, interestingly, negative correlation. People who are currently using it for buyer personas for pricing guides and sales scripts, there's actually a negative correlation, meaning I think Professor Oldroyd, when they use it for that, companies that use it for that, it actually harms their growth rate.
That's right. And you think about it, and to me, it makes sense. Content, I'm going to turn over. If I turn over the actual closing here, the pricing, probably not the right thing to turn over to AI yet. I mean, maybe we'll get there eventually, but we're not there yet.
Again, just a couple of minutes. So competitor analysis has a positive correlation. Pricing guidelines, this is desired. Negative correlation. You can kind of, again, we'll make this. In fact, I think we're about there. So we talked about, again, I'm trying to hit things. This is our last slide. So I guess here's what I would say. We'll make all of these slides available for a download. We also have an infographic that will then be available on the Demand Gen Summit website, and also the signals. If you go to getsignals.ai, the infographic will be available for anybody who's participating or registered for the event. With kind of a no gate, you don't have to fill out your information again. And then there's two other studies we're going to recommend you guys look at. McKinsey has done a study that I think is worth spending a little bit of time, as has BCG. So I think as you're thinking about go-to-market, the study that Professor Oldroyd just published in partnership with Signals, and then the McKinsey and the BCG studies, but please reach out to us. The other thing is the study is ongoing. If you want to participate or be involved in it, please reach out to Signals. We're going to put a link to where you can also complete the study, so you can be a participant in the study, and then there'll be a much more lengthy write-up. If you do participate, it'll be available to you for free at no cost. And any last thoughts, Professor Oldroyd?
No, I mean, honestly, I just wish you great luck. If you're holding back, don't. Like, you gotta figure this out. This is the future. Lots of anecdotal evidence that this is going to fundamentally change how we go to market. And so you've got to figure it out. It's going to radically decrease your costs. It's going to radically increase revenue for firms and cause differentiation. We're still very early on. And so don't feel like you're behind. Just get to work. And anyway,
yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. And again, don't feel stress. The market is evolving. Signals will be providing this research on a regular basis. So if you want to make sure you're in the loop, please, stay involved with Signals and kind of the different studies that they'll be doing on a regular basis. So thanks, Pete, for allowing us to present the data here.
Yeah, most definitely. Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Oldroyd, Dave Elkington. Thank you for joining us, the insights and research. We look forward to hearing more about it later.